Hi, welcome to the Take 5 podcast, the show that helps strengthen firefighters in protecting those relationships that matter most. I'm your host, Lee Sullivan, licensed mental health counselor and certified emotionally focused therapist. I'm so glad you're here today. Hi, today I want to talk about your favorite topic and my favorite topic, vulnerability. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek. Right out of the gate though, we do want to tip our hat to Brene Brown, who has provided a world stage to this thing called vulnerability. And we love how she takes the research of clinicians and puts it in layman's terms and kind of connects the dots between different research topics and brings it to the world stage. And so I know many of you firefighters are familiar with her work. And so we just want to tip our hat to her and say with gratitude and definitely continue the conversation on this crazy thing called vulnerability. We want to understand what it is and what it is not. And it sort of makes sense to me that vulnerability within fire service culture has a negative connotation. When you think in terms of a firefighter or a paramedic and your preparedness, vulnerability shows a weakness. So when you have a patient, for example, and you say that the patient is vulnerable, they are somehow medically or physically compromised. When you have a structure that is vulnerable, you see it in terms of how the structure is weak or the safety is compromised. And so you need to pay particular attention to keep your crew safe. So it makes sense that there's this negative understanding of vulnerability. And so we want to slice out of all of vulnerability. We want to slice out emotional vulnerability and understand what it is and what it really is not. We want to kind of expand our thinking a little bit around this topic. So when we express our emotions, we can do it in one of two ways. We can use cognitive expression or we can use emotionally engaged expression. Cognitive expression is when we share about our emotional experience. I think of it as if we're describing our emotions from a distance, as if they're over there and we're just sort of narrating them. So let me give you an example of this. I'll use a real world example. So right now, because I prefer not to be on camera, I would much rather do a video podcast, but that would not be me being vulnerable and modeling for you vulnerability. So because I don't like to be on camera, I feel nervous. I might forget something important. I feel a little bit fearful that maybe I'm not giving you something valuable or worth your time and energy. I may let you down. I feel a little afraid I might let you down. There's a part of me, a smaller part, that I feel confident in this material. I happen to know this material very well, and so that exists too. So when I share cognitively, when I share about my experience from a cognitive lens, it's more like a normal conversation. My tone, my expression, the cadence of my voice, it's all kind of normal conversational. You don't sense that I'm taking really very much risk in sharing this with you when I use this cognitive expression. Let me express the same thing, but using emotionally engaged language. So I'll try to use the same script here. So right now, because I prefer to not be in front of the camera. Part of me feels nervous. I might forget something important to say. I'm afraid that I'm gonna miss something important to say. I most likely will forget something because I'm human and I'm frail and imperfect. I feel fearful that I'm not giving you something valuable or worth your time. And those things are really important to me in supporting you. I feel nervous that I might let you down in some capacity. There's a part of me, a much smaller part of me, that feels confident because I do happen to know this material. And so that exists, that confident part of me, but it's much smaller compared to all the fear and nervousness and worry that I feel at the same time. So when I share from that emotionally engaged perspective, you really sense my vulnerability. Even through this camera, you can sense it's uncomfortable for me. You can probably feel it with me. And there's a good neurobiological reason why we can experience this together. We have a system in our brain called, it's many mirror neurons create a mirror neuron system within our brain. And so when I show something, you actually experience it as if you are experiencing it as well. So when I show vulnerability through my emotionally engaged expressions, you're feeling that you're taking that risk with me. So in a very real sense, it's our shared risk together. Your action response to the risk that you feel that you're taking, your action response to that is going to be empathy and compassion and caring understanding while it's me expressing. Okay? So I want to encourage you, when you're talking to others, just flag. Are you talking from an emotionally engaged experience? Or are you using cognitive language to describe about your experience as if it's from a distance over there? There's good reasons that we use both of these. We just want to expand our mind, expand our experiences so that we do not have to get stuck in a track of only using one way to express ourselves. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope this expands your understanding of what vulnerability is. Thank you. Please visit my website, elpiscounseling.com, for a list of references used in today's episode. Remember, what we see, we can change, one feeling, one message, one conversation at a time. Thank you for joining me as we learn to tap into our emotion signals to protect and preserve those relationships that matter most. Be safe and be well.